Tonight we also have with us Debbie Davis. Debbie Davis is the Policy Director for the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water in California. This is a statewide coalition of 70 tribe and community-based groups and nonprofit organizations working to achieve water justice, working to build social justice so low-income and marginalized people everywhere can have access to water. Debbie?
I prefer not to stand on that little step stool there. So I'm going to use a microphone that I can walk around with. It's more fun that way. So I don't know. I was thinking about what I should say tonight. And what more can you say? Water for life, not for profit. That's the vision that we're all trying to get to, right? What else do you say? And so I think the interesting question is, how do we get there? It's a great vision. It's what we should have, but we're very, very far away from that. And I feel like we're going the opposite direction. More and more, water is being privatized. More and more people are trying to make water off of bottled water. And guess what? You all are doing take back the tap or think outside the bottle, or, in the US, actually, bottled water sales are down. But you know where all the bottled water is going now? Third world countries. So we just took our exploitation and we exported it. And that's definitely not justice. And that's not achieving our vision of water for life, not for profit. So I'm going to start by talking about the challenges we face going from here to there. Because one of them here in the US is that we have communities that can't drink their tap water. So they can't turn on the tap and take that glass of water and be thankful for it because they know it's making them sick, and it's making their children sick, and it's making their elders sick. And so they are forced to rely on bottled water. They have no other choice. And just as people stop drinking bottled water, then the bottled water companies increase the price of the bottled water, and then you have the folks that have the least paying the most for their water. And they're literally oftentimes paying 3 or 4 times the amount for water that any of us would pay, because they pay very high water rates for this water they can't drink out of their tap. And then they pay on top of that for the bottled water they need to keep their families safe. They're still using that water that comes out of their tap to bathe in, sometimes to cook with if they can't afford bottled water for cooking. They're using it to wash their clothes. They're in contact with it. They're using it. We have community members who don't drink their water, and still their skin, they have skin rashes and their hair falls out just from bathing in that water. Some toxic contaminants like trichloropropane 1,2,3 is actually worse for you through skin contact than it is if you drink it. So if we're going to go from here to water for life, not for profit, we have to solve that problem in the US. And we have to solve that problem in a way that doesn't export bottled water to third world countries. I wish I had the magic solution, and sadly I don't. But if we work together, I think we can find the way we solve this problem. Another challenge that we face is that we have many small communities across the nation that are served. Their whole entire community might be 3,000 people, might be 200 people, and they have their own community water system. Because there are so few people in the community, the cost of serving water is distributed only across that small number of people, makes it very expensive. When these communities originally sprung up, they could stick a pipe in the ground, pump the water fairly inexpensively, and deliver it for a reasonable cost to customers. Since we've allowed groundwater aquifers to be polluted, and we talked earlier about irrigated agriculture, which is a huge source of groundwater pollution across the nation, we've allowed them to pollute. We don't ask them to be responsible for their pollution, and we shift the entire burden to these small communities. And so they have very few options, and those are most of the communities that end up at the end of the day without safe drinking water at their tap. But the interesting thing is that in California at least, oftentimes the companies that will serve those communities are the private companies, because they can make a profit off of it. And so you have communities that have very few choices, but one of them is to bring a private company in. So for us, for EJCW, we are not actually, sorry to say, opposed to privatization, because sometimes that's the best available solution. So we also have to figure out how we solve these problems for these small communities. And sure, we're not talking about a lot of people. Urban centers, generally speaking, have the highest populations and serve the best water to their populations because, you know, they pipe it in from somewhere else. But these small communities have the same right to high quality, affordable water that everyone else does. So we have to figure out how to solve that challenge too. The great news is that if we invested our money in the right way, if we set our policies in the right way, we could solve the problem. I have no doubt whatsoever that we could find affordable treatment technologies instead of promoting Band-Aid solutions, which is usually drilling another well a few miles away that becomes contaminated a few years later. If we could actually look at the sustainable solutions, if we could look at the inexpensive treatment technologies, I think we could solve the problem. We have communities in the Central Valley that have high quality surface water that quite literally flows through their backyards, literally in their backyards. They're drinking the contaminated groundwater. Why is that okay? Who said that these community members had to drink this water that's contaminated by the same people who are going to take that high quality water? They're going to use it to irrigate their fields, that is going to leach more fertilizer, more pesticides into that groundwater that then these small communities are forced to drink. So if we could, instead of looking at the political dynamic and what is politically expedient, and could instead look at what is just and what is equitable, there are definitely solutions to be had. So those are two challenges. There are a few more, I won't lie. But I only have a certain amount of time to talk tonight, so I'm going to leave it at those two and shift over to what are some of the strategies we might use to get to the vision? Besides addressing the challenges that we have, what strategies are available to us so that we can start moving in the direction that we need to start going, so we can stop this train that is cruising down the tracks in the wrong direction? And one of those things that I believe, and I should say I'm not actually speaking for EJCW right now because we haven't actually had this conversation, but one of the things that I believe is that the first step is recognizing our place as human beings on this earth. We, as human beings, have a high amount of hubris. And we think, and I say the royal we, not me in particular, but we think that we can master this earth for our own purposes. Someday, it will all, we will pay the piper eventually. But right now, we're still riding this wave of engineering and science that says that if there is a problem, we can build it, we can treat it, we can master it, we can control it. I mean, we do flood control. We do water treatment. And so instead, if we could acknowledge and recognize that we are just one little tiny piece of this greater earth and find our place and be comfortable with that, then I think the answers that we are looking for will be easier to find. It would be easy to understand that damming water, which is far more powerful than all of us put together times a million, it would be easy to understand that that's just dumb. It would be easier to understand that throwing a whole bunch of contaminants into this water that is the lifeblood of this planet, and then imagining that somehow we can magically remove them at the other end without affecting the ultimate quality of that water. I mean, it always boggles my mind when we talk about water treatment. It's very expensive, very energy intensive. And not only does it take out the contaminants you want to take out, but it also takes out all the minerals and all of the life to the water. But somehow along the line, we thought that was a good idea. And again, I think that's because we just figured we must be as big as God, we must be as smart as God because we can do this and we can figure out the consequences, and if they're bad consequences, we'll just add those minerals back in down the line and it'll be as good as new. So I really feel like one of the first steps is to figure out how we, not only individually, but communally, re-find our place on this planet. And then that's when the real work starts, because the people in this room are just the people in this room. And the people in this community of Eugene are just the community of Eugene. And the forces that we have to fight to bring that to the greater powers that be are enormous. Enormous. And so we all have to figure out for ourselves and for our communities what we're willing to do, how much are we willing to do, how important is this to us? Because it's not going to be easy. But frankly, I think that's also part of one of the myths that we have as a society, that things should be easy, that you should be able to walk over to your tap and turn it on and fill a glass of water. You shouldn't have to work for that glass of water. But in fact, that's not really how things work. That's the myth that we've created. And so if we let go of that and we decide we're willing to put in the work, then I think, again, there's hope. And for me, personally, I find that hope every time I look at the young people coming up. Because, frankly, I'm jaded by the system. I have all my beliefs and ideas that came from growing up in this world as it is. But my hope is that by having this conversation and including the young people in the conversation, even young ones, I mean, sometimes they say the most amazing things. I hang out with the Winnemem Tree Tribe a lot and walk around their village. And sometimes I walk with the very young ones. And every time we walk around, there's a little waterfall on the property. And we get there, and one of the young ones always says, well, I think we should sing for the water. And so we stand there and we sing for the water. I mean, if I walked by myself, it would never occur to me. And I hang out with them a lot. You know, you would think it would, but no. It takes a young one to remind you. And so I think if we engage the young ones more in the conversation, hopefully they'll think differently than we do. And they'll be able to move this forward in a way, because frankly, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. Sad to say. But I do hope it happens in theirs. Thank you.